Hello retro gamers, new gamers, pets, and children alike. This is RC from the Game Grave, and today I want to talk about Overwatch. This past weekend, they just had another beta for yet another game called Overwatch. This one's kind of a biggie though. This is the first new Blizzard IP since Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone. Actually, Blizzard's had quite a few new IPs the past few years, haven't they? But normally, it's kind of a big deal because Blizzard puts a lot of time and effort into their games. And having played Overwatch for a few hours this past weekend, I can honestly say, yes, they put a lot of time, effort, love, and all that stuff into Overwatch. Now the weirdest thing about this game is that I am a Blizzard fan, I guess. I play Diablo 3 every time there's a new season. I played World of Warcraft for quite a while. I played Hearthstone the day it came out. But with Overwatch, I didn't know a thing about it. In fact, I had it confused with the other games Battleborn and Paragon. Pretty much sounds like everybody else did too. Now, while I can't really speak to how similar it is to Battleborn as I didn't get a chance to play the beta for that game, I can say that Paragon and Overwatch are completely different games. If you haven't already seen it, last week I did a video about the Paragon stress test beta. If you're unfamiliar with that game, better go check that out just so you get an idea of what it is. When it comes to Overwatch though, this is a completely different game. This is not a MOBA, though it is completely multiplayer and team-based. So what exactly is Overwatch? What is the gameplay like? Well, if you played Team Fortress 2, it's pretty much that with a lot of different classes. However, if you haven't played Team Fortress 2, then it's sort of a 6-on-6 first-person shooter, obviously team-based, where you're trying to capture nodes or move objects to the end of a map, where there's 21 different characters to choose from who all play pretty differently. Did I just say 21 different classes and characters? Yeah, I did. There's 21 to choose from, and I'm assuming there's more to come. I was just as surprised by this as you might be hearing this right now. I'm used to maybe 9-10 different classes to pick from at most, but 21? Whew, man, it is a little overwhelming at first trying to pick one to start with. But once you start, you realize that all of them are pretty easy to get used to. Now of course, some characters do play a little more easily than others. However, I would say for even the most difficult to control characters, it took maybe 5 rounds to fully get what was going on with them. Which I have to say, that's a pretty remarkable feat to have 21 different characters that you can pretty much learn and understand within a few rounds of playing them. You have your heavy tank type classes, your damage type classes, even healers. There's bound to be one that's going to work for you. And in addition to that, every theme for every character is different as well. I mean, it varies from futuristic to Old West to feudal Japan, and there's a ton of other ones too. Personally, I love this aspect of the game because I love the variety. And you might also think, wow, I bet the game is pretty unbalanced because there's 21 different classes who all play differently. But I have to say, through all the times that I played different rounds with different characters, I never really felt like I was at a disadvantage with any certain character. So the way every character is set up is they all have a main weapon. Some characters have an alternate fire for that weapon. Every character has 2 different abilities that have a cooldown to them, and some of them react differently than others. And then every character has a charged up super ability. All of the different characters' super abilities are very different from each other, so it's really hard to explain what it does, but basically it takes a characteristic about that character and turns it into this super ability that can either take out a lot of guys or help your team immensely. So for example, there's a character named Bastion. He's a robot, which is cool in itself, but his normal gun is an SMG. Now his first ability turns himself into a stationary turret. That of course has a cooldown, however his other ability, called self-repair, actually repairs himself, gives him a little bit of health back, and doesn't even have a cooldown. And his ultimate ability turns him into, guess what, a tank. And just to give you one more example, there's a dwarf character named Torbjorn. Now he can actually build his own sentry guns with his first ability. His main weapon is a rivet gun, but he has a second weapon, a hammer, which will actually upgrade your turret to a second level. Now by you and your team taking out enemies, they actually leave behind little gear scraps that you can collect, and these will help you build things like armor that you can throw out for your team to pick up and use. Then of course, his ultimate ability is pretty much like an overpowered attack thing that powers the dwarf up and powers the sentry gun up, and you do a ton of damage on the enemies. Now, I'm not going to go on and on about all the different characters' abilities, even though I could, but I just wanted to give you a few examples of the variety that's within this game. And to add even more variety into the game for you, every level that you gain, you're going to get a loot box, and when you open it, you're going to unlock things like skins, emotes, victory poses, sprays, and that kind of thing for all of your different characters. So every time you play as a different character, they'll be different from how they normally are. And every character has about 54 of these unlocks for you to get from leveling up through the game, so there's quite a bit of stuff to find here. In addition to that, if you're finding certain things that you want to unlock that you don't seem to be able to through just leveling up randomly, that's why they have an in-game currency for you, which you also earn by killing and leveling up. So do you see a certain voice pack that you really want? Well, you can buy that with a certain amount of gold that you earn in the game. Now, the only thing in the game that I do feel like needs a little bit of attention are the amount of modes that are available to play. I'm sure this will be remedied through the years as Blizzard supports the game. However, right out of the gate, there's a lot of samey mode stuff going on here. So the first mode that you have is called Assault, which is where you just capture a series of stations or places in the map as you move along. Then you have Escort, where you're running to a certain, I guess as they call it, a payload. It's usually a car or something of that nature, but you run to that and you follow it to the end of the map, very similar to what is already in Team Fortress 2. Then in Control, you are to capture and hold a certain area of the map, and you have to do this for 2 rounds for your team to officially win. Then the fourth mode is, believe it or not, a combination of Assault and Escort, where you have to capture the payload and then escort it to the end of the map. You see what I mean? The modes are all very similar to each other. Capture the thing, make sure you keep capturing the thing, but I guess as a seasoned Team Fortress 2 player, this is to be expected. However, I do hope that there is more variety to come in further updates. I think another thing that competitive players are not going to like is the elimination of the kill count or scoreboard during a round. That's right. During the current round that you're playing, there is no hitting a button to see what your current score is or how many kills you have. It's just not a thing that exists that you can check out. Blizzard has instead found other ways for you to be competitive. They want you to make the play of the game. At the end of every round, they're going to show what person had the best play of the game. This could amount to someone who had the most kills, someone who did the most defending, whatever it is, and they're going to actually show the replay at the end of the map. Then they're going to show about, I believe it's 4 different trophies for 4 different players, showing off feats that they did during the map. Now, this could be anything like spent the most minutes next to the payload while escorting it to the end of the map, or it could be something as simple as most kills, or it could even be the person who healed other people the most. And then people can give you kudos for those, and you can earn a little bit more XP. And while the game does keep statistics on a lot of your different characters, like the most kills that you've gotten in a game with such character, I think that the lack of a scoreboard for some is going to be a big turnoff. However, I believe Blizzard did this for the sake of the team playing together and not worrying about how many kills they got, and worrying more about the task at hand, which in the long run might be a smart move. And I've only gotten 1 play of the game so far, but it was a great feeling to receive it at the end of that round. Well, that pretty much sums up Overwatch right there. But the question is this going to be a game that I'm going to pre-order or purchase at some point? Well, I gotta be honest, playing through this beta made me pre-order the game. I had a ton of fun playing this over the weekend, and I think I'm going to have a ton of fun playing it when it's released. Now, I only put a few hours into it during the beta, and that's because they're going to completely reset everybody's progress by the time the game comes out. And I think this is a smart thing to do anyway, because you don't want to burn yourself out on the beta before the full game comes out, because then you may not really want to play it all that much. So it's interesting because this game went from a game that I knew almost nothing about to playing the beta to pre-ordering it. So go figure, I guess demos do still work and convince people to pre-order. Well, there you go, everybody. If you haven't already, I recommend checking out the beta. I think it's really, really cool. And if it's past the point when the beta has already happened, I definitely recommend checking out the full game, maybe when it's on sale. I really think you'll have a ton of fun with this game. I know I did. And I really can't wait for the full game to come out. I'll see you next time, Game Gravers.